Hey everybody, it's me, Treyblowski again, back after I think I call it the rambling update video about life in YouTube. I've been thinking a lot about that since then. I've had a couple breakthroughs, and I think I know what to do going forward. I don't know if I mentioned in the video, I think I mentioned in community, I've been in the process of trying to record more shorts. They can come out once a week starting next year. Something I want to absolutely try for is I want to try to find a way to, at the very least, if we can't get back to weekly episodes of Creepy Puppet, maybe bi-weekly. Because I want to try to have one ready by the anniversary year of the first episode. I did Squidward's Very Bad Day, and I talked about doing the other one, which was Squidward, which was Red Mist. So I'd like to try to at least have that done to sort of commemorate, and we kind of work out the rest from there. The thing I'm going with is that I've talked to people who said I really should prioritize just the creepypasta thing and the shorts. YouTube's actual AI helper even said, yeah, you should probably just make more of this. I actually didn't want to do the stories I wrote under episodes of Creepy Puppet. I'd like to do those kind of as their own readings, so you may see some of those where it's just me reading it. It's not Boyle's. I do, try to promote the book a little. The mindset I'm adopting for this now is a variant of set it and forget it. We upload it, we just let it be, go to the next thing. I don't obsess over the analytics. I don't try to plot out ideas for sequels and things. And I realize it may be a couple of years before we're at the point we can actually make big puppet videos that aren't shorts and have actual lore and backstory, because I've realized lore is a luxury. Not everybody gets the opportunity to have that. Depending on circumstances, it's harder to do that in favor of just silly stuff with the characters. So that update didn't take as long as I thought. Yeah. More shorts. We're going to focus on just doing silly shorts with the puppets. And if I can get my hands on an iPad, we actually could start doing scripted shorts with the puppets. So what's probably going to be the bulk of this is I'm going to be basically putting as much of the lore as I can remember I wanted to do here. And I may actually try to do a sort of side series about ideas for puppet videos that I wanted to make, but right now, at this point in my life, it just can't be done. And not without winning the lottery or somehow getting back on a 4 10-hour day work week. Okay, rundown. Little Bonehead is actually the son of the Grim Reaper. He's half angel of death. The Grim Reaper hooked up with a mortal woman back in the 70s. She gave birth to a baby skeleton. The undead thing wasn't as common, and he was basically abandoned, and so he spent like a decade crying. And then the Treyblowski puppet would have found him, tried to just be a foster parent, but then accidentally legally fully adopted him. The whole element was supposed to be the pilot episode of Whacky Puppets, leading into, and I know I'm committing. I've gotten upset at programs in the past for this, of like, oh well, you're basing this on yourself. This whole thing just feels like a therapy session. Like, it's more kind of trying to take my own personal experiences with learning to kind of live again and adjust after my dad died, and just kind of recovering from physical, emotional, and psychological abuse. So I thought an interesting element for that in a series is a guy has recovered from that, and he basically ends up, through wacky circumstances, becoming a dad, and kind of building up this whole found family aesthetic with each of the puppets that more or less get adopted into the Blowski household. The actual plot of, I think I said if we ever got to 1 million subscribers, it would be a Whacky Puppets movie. That might be a good 20 years. So the plot would have revolved around Little Bonehead's actual dad, Death, coming to take him back, and the puppets go on a wacky road trip to go get him back. It was stuff like, I tried to get as many cameos from people that I was a fan of, and every puppet character that had ever been in a video, minus like ones based on third parties, because this, I would have wanted this to actually be like, I would have found a distributor for it. So an element of Little Bonehead being like half celestial being was going to be that every now and then when he got upset because somebody he cared about was getting hurt, he would kind of go into this Super Saiyan angel mode where he would grow 6 wings and he'd just basically get really strong. But the catalyst, because he's so young, he would basically get tired every time he tapped into that power. So it'd be kind of a once per video thing. Like, only in dire situations. Kyle was also going to be like half celestial being. A whole element of his backstory, why he became an alcoholic, is he came home one day and his father told him that his mother had died. And he didn't even get to say goodbye. And that's what kind of made him become rebellious and become an alcoholic, which led to him dying in a cemetery when he fell on a tombstone. That one wouldn't have came up as much, but it just would have been a cool reveal. The actual reason why Kyle's family can't die, it's on his dad's side, would have been in... Yeah, can you guess I saw Nosferatu when I wrote this? That the skeleton... A member of the skeleton family was more or less begged by a guy in a village plagued by this vampire to take his daughter out of there. And what happened is he failed to protect her. She was killed by the vampire. And so the guy put a hex on him and his family that they would never know the pleasures of death. To be basically immortal like the vampire was. Dennis and Boyd, the green-haired guy and the one-eyed red thing, were supposed to have more of an actual connection with Grungus. That basically, back in the day, they were like an Ed and Eddie group where they were misfits who were all friends and they kept trying to scam people. Grungus was the one who actually became self-aware about it and realized that this was not the way to go, and that's why he left them. And it's kind of this idea that Grungus wants nothing to do with Dennis and Boyd. They're kind of the resident scumbags of Puppetville. They live out of an RV. And yeah. Leon and Sammy, the purple guy and the shrimp, are a married couple. They are both military. There was a whole video I wrote a script for, which was about them meeting in the 80s, almost killing each other, slowly falling in love. Sammy was a KGB, and he ends up being sent to Gulag, and they go rescue him, and then they get married. It was a crazy ass Cold War gay love story, and I want to still make that because I think it was a really good script. Rabona I kept wanting to introduce this character. It was based off one of my paintings of a guy called Toxic Tom. His whole thing is he was just literally a toxic person. Some elements I tried to incorporate were stuff like he was a serial killer who would poison people. But the idea is that he drinks like he drinks like chemicals. And, I have to not specify specific ones if I ever did this so people don't try to say it's imitatable behavior. Drinking stuff that has skulls and crossbones on it, stuff you're not supposed to drink, and he drinks it like alcohol. Earl was... I think an element of Earl was at one point trying to hunt down like a Power Wheels truck, and there's a whole running thing about him trying to fix a truck up because he doesn't have anything to do. When I first put him in, there was going to be a joke where he kept trying to turn the house into a farm. But then we moved houses, now I'm in an apartment, so kind of doesn't really work anymore. And even the whole element that Earl was running away from an abusive father feels like it kind of got swept to the wayside. For back to Rabona, her killer would have been revealed to be the son of the mayor, and because of that influence, he basically got away with whatever he wanted. So there would have been this idea of trying to let go. But then, as a nice little thing at the end, he comes to Leon and Sammy's bar, he causes problems, and Sammy Shrimp, remember, former Russian KGB Shrimp, gives him a free drink that actually has a certain type of poison that allegedly Russian operatives would use. And so it's kind of like the idea of, the Treyblowski doesn't get the satisfaction of killing the guy who killed his girlfriend. Rabona has kind of come to terms with it, and he just dies, and it's like, oh, well, that's nice. Fantasmique, I kind of like the idea of making her. Her whole thing is that she's Courtney Johnson, but she got really into goth. She's still she's in like her 20s, and she still acts like a goth. So another angle I wanted to add to the character was the idea that once upon a time, Courtney Johnson, dead name Carlton Johnson, or Carl Johnson. Yeah, Fantasmique, I was never able to incorporate it properly, but yeah, Fantasmique is trans. Some band was supposed to be an actual band, but I just did not have the time to learn how to play instruments. And FL Studio, Fruity Loops, does a lot, but you can only do so much with it. So I did run into limits there. And Doubler, I think maybe I could do that, because I do play around in Suno a lot, and one thing I've learned is that if you just kind of do an a cappella beat, it can generate a whole song around that. Doubler basically does that, but it turns it into MIDI files you can actually use in FL Studio. I just can't afford it right now because it's like $200. Grungus Maximus has kind of stayed fairly consistent. I hoped at one point we could actually see his sister, Stacy Dresser, according to the notes. It's kind of like how I've been trying to make a puppet for Spikini, and at some point I do want to introduce that. I said in a bio video that Boyles does have a wife named Subcutaneous Horns, and I also wanted to introduce him having. The problem is him having a daughter doesn't work, because I've kind of ran about the idea that Boyles is like over 180 years old. So I guess in that case it would be he has a granddaughter named Nora, which is short for her name is normal, because his kids had like weird deformities like him, but for some reason his grandchild is perfectly normal, which is just a really freaky thing for a whole family of people with deformities that don't let it get them down. And she's just like, I don't have anything to get down. I don't have any deformities. I feel weird because I don't have deformities like my dad and my grandpa and his dad. Mully and Todd are supposed to be like Little Bonehead's friends. And I did create 2 more puppets that basically they were the necks of other puppets, but the fabric was just such a hassle to deal with. I just glued arms on them and said, screw it. They're kids. This is Robbie. This is Bobby. They're the lizard twins. Another one, the kind of football head guy I have, was going to be a teacher named Mr. Haddit, but he would insist it was pronounced Mr. Hadit. And his whole thing is that he hated being a teacher, and he just hated his students, especially Todd. Other ideas I had are more actual video ideas, so I may just make a separate thing about what the actual plot or synopsis for that video would have been. The only other thing is that I kept trying to introduce a doctor character, but I was just never able to afford like a baby doctor's costume or a doll doctor's costume. So right now we don't have a doctor. I did think about why I just get the Melissa and Doug doctor and I take the outfit off that, but that puppet is really hard to get now because thanks to SML. Because a lot of people buy it because they buy it and they buy the chef puppet. Because, oh my god, it's Brooklyn guy. Oh my god, it's Chef Pee-Pee. I really want to finish Spookini because then I can finally do that poll. Who's the best puppet chef? Spookini, the Swedish chef from the Muppets, or Chef Pee-Pee? Okay, so that was me kind of explaining what my plan for the future is, realizing a lot of the big heavier stuff, it's going to be a long time before we can actually make those. And just a general lore dump for some of the stuff we had planned. If I think of anything else, I'll probably just include it in a separate video. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm starting to do this because I know not everybody reads community posts. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the content we're able to make in the meantime. If there was anybody out there who was invested in like actual serious lore videos or serious storylines, I do apologize that we really can't do those right now. So have a good day.